Hi everybody, Andy here with you from Wildflower Designs, and today we are going to be learning how to make this adorable little crocheted amigurumi bee. Now again, amigurumi is basically just making 3D shapes or objects or stuffed animals with crochet or knitting. It's a Japanese art form and it is super duper cute. So without further ado, let's take a look at what we're going to need for this project. So today we are going to be working with a 5mm crochet hook. You'll need a pair of scissors, a stitch marker. Now I probably won't be actually using mine, but I highly suggest that you use yours today so that you don't lose your place. We'll also need a darning needle. We will need black, yellow, and just a little bit of white. Now we won't need this much, but this is what I have set out already. What you'll also need today is some polyfill stuffing. Now there are many different kinds of this stuffing. You can get whatever kind you want. This is the kind that we have here in Canada at Michael's or Walmart. And then the final things that you'll need are 2 beads. Now these are just normal beads from my daughter's bead collection. You can also use safety eyes, but the thing with safety eyes is if you're not making a whole bunch of stuffed animals, it's really hard to find them in small amounts, small quantities, so you might have to buy, 25 or 50 sets all at once. So a little trick is to use the beads as the safety eyes, and they work really well in my opinion. If you're in a pinch or if you're just learning and you don't want to invest too much in safety eyes for stuffed animals. Now these will not come off and neither will safety eyes, but you can attach these after. I'm going to show you the method that I used for this bee where I actually attach them first and I just keep pushing them down the yarn until we're ready to pull them closer to where we need them. So let's get started with the pattern. Okay, so I am ready here with my yellow yarn. I had to pull a little bit out. There was a bit of a knot at the beginning of it. So I'm only going to need a little bit to start with, but the first thing that we need to remember to do is attach our safety eyes, or beads, I suppose, in this situation. So we'll attach our darning needle to our yarn, and we'll just pop those eyes on, and we'll put them a fair ways down our yarn, just to stay out of our way. We'll be bringing them to our piece in row 3. So we don't need them quite yet, so we can push them a little ways down our yarn. I've got my stitch marker here ready to go, and we are going to start with a magic ring. Now if you need more attention to detail on the magic ring, I do have a watermelon coaster video that I did a couple of weeks ago that I focus much more on how to do the magic ring. So I'll go through this fairly quickly. If you need to stop this video and watch the other one, then pause it now. I'm going to get going with this one though. So we're going to take the tail of our yarn, we'll wrap it away from our body around all 4 fingers, and then just around those middle 2 fingers, we'll wrap it once and twice. Then we'll grab the tail and our working yarn and pinch them between our thumb and our finger. It does get a little bit awkward, but you only have to hold it like this for a moment. Then from right to left, we'll insert underneath these 2 loops on our fingers. We'll then yarn over. I bend my finger to help, but you don't have to do that. We'll yarn over and we'll pull through. And then to secure that, we'll just chain 1. Once you've chained 1, you can pinch where you've chained there, pull your fingers out and let your tail hang. It'll sort of form a 9. And then you can readjust your hands. Now this is the circle that we'll be working our stitches into, and we're going to be placing 6 single crochet into this circle. So single crochet, you insert your hook, yarn over, draw up a loop, and then yarn over and draw through both of those. We've created 1 single crochet and we're going to make 6 total. So I'm going to go ahead and place 5 more. And then once I'm done this step, I'll go find that first stitch that we made and I'll just hold on to it so we don't lose anything. Now one of these tails is not going to pull and one of them is going to pull. And you'll see it start to cinch up your magic circle. So we'll cinch that all the way up and then we're left with this goofy little thing here. And to get rid of that, we simply pull the tail of our yarn. And to close up this circle, we need to slip stitch into the first stitch that we made. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I will slip stitch, which means we insert our hook, draw through a loop, and then pull that straight through the loop that's on our hook. We've now closed up the first row. You can go ahead and trim this tail. Sometimes it can get in the way a little bit. You don't have to worry about leaving it too long to weave in because it's actually just going to get tucked into our piece. You won't even see it. Now we are going to do an increase row. So when you increase, you're going to be placing 2 stitches into one of these stitches around. And to start, we're going to chain 1. This chain 1 is not going to count as our first stitch. So we need to go ahead and place 2 single crochet into the top of this stitch, right where the base of your chain is coming from. So we will insert our hook, yarn over, drop a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We've placed 1 single crochet, and then into the same stitch that we just worked into, we need to place a second. So we have 2 single crochet, and in the rest of the 5 stitches around, we're going to place 2 single crochet. So we've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And now to finish up this row, we need to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made. So if we count backwards, we'll find that 12th stitch, and we'll slip stitch right into the top of it to finish up that row. And then we can start on row 3. And this is the row where we will be inserting the eyes. Okay, so for row 3, we are going to start the same way as we started row 2. We're going to chain 1, and in this row we will be increasing again. But what we need to do first is place 1 single crochet into the top of that first stitch. And again, that's right where the base of your chain is coming from. So in this row, we're going to be doing a pattern of 1 single crochet, increase, 1 single crochet, increase, all the way around. But we are going to be pulling our beads down in this row. So I'm going to work this full row with you. So we've placed 1 single crochet, and now we're going to place 2. We're going to increase in that next stitch. We'll do that again. We'll do 1 single crochet and then increase. So we'll place 1 in the next stitch, and then 2 into the stitch after that. And we'll do that once more, and then we're going to pull down our first bead. So we'll place 1 into the next stitch, and 2 into the stitch after that. Now this is where we're going to place our first bead. So we'll pull that next bead down, and we're just going to ignore it. We're going to pretend it's not there. And what's going to happen is when you work your next stitch, it'll pop to the back of your piece. That's okay. We're going to push it forward once we're done this row. So we're going to pretend as though there is no bead there at all, and we are going to place 1 single crochet into that next stitch. So we'll insert, yarn over behind that bead. We don't want to yarn over in front of this bead, or else it's not going to be worked in yet. So make sure that you draw your bead nice and close, and then yarn over behind it, drop a loop and pull through. And as you can see, my bead is to the back of my piece right now, but that's okay. So we've placed 1 single crochet, and then we're going to place 2 single crochet. So we're going to increase 1 and 2, and this is where we'll bring down our second bead. And again, we're going to pretend it's not there at all. We'll work 1 single crochet into that next stitch. We just need to make sure that when we yarn over, we're behind that bead so that it stays in place. So there's 1 single crochet, and then we'll place 2 single crochet. So we'll increase. And then we will do that once more. We'll place 1 single crochet and we will place 2 single crochet. And we are back to the beginning of our piece. So again, we'll slip stitch into the top of that first stitch that we've made. And I have forgotten to show you where to place your stitch markers, so I will show you right now. But this is the top of that first stitch that we've made. If I place my stitch marker, it will be a little bit easier for you to see. So this is the top of the stitch that we just made, that we started, the row with. And this is our chain stitch. This is the stitch that the chain stitch is coming directly out of, and sometimes it can look like a fake stitch. All you need to worry about is your stitch count. So long as you have the right amount of stitches in each row, you should be okay. If you get to the end of your row and you think that you still have 1 stitch to work, count your stitches around, and if you have enough, you can be pretty sure that that's the fake stitch that I'm talking about that is sometimes created when you're working in circles. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first stitch that I made. And then we'll just give ourselves a little bit of room to work here and take our hook out. And I just want to pop our eyes, our beads, to the front of our piece. So we'll just kind of push them and they'll come through wherever they are situated. You can separate the stitches a little bit if you need to bring them through. And there we go. We have our 2 eyes. And as we keep working, they will stay to the front of our piece. So we're ready to start row 4. Okay, so row 4 is going to be our final increase row. And then we are going to start working 1 single crochet into each stitch around, which will shape our bee's body. So this is our last face row. We're going to start the same way with a chain 1. And we will insert a single crochet into the top of that first stitch. And we will insert a single crochet into the next stitch. And into that third stitch there, we're going to be placing 2 single crochet. So we're going to be doing an increase. 1 and 2. So this whole row will be a pattern of single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, all the way around. And this will be our final increase row before we start shaping his body. So when we started with a stitch count of 6, and then we increased in each stitch around to make 12. And then in our third row, we did 1 single crochet, increase, 1 single crochet, increase. That gave us a stitch count of 18. And in this row, we're going to be placing single crochet, increase, all the way around, which will give us a total stitch count of 24. So when we're finished this row, we'll have a stitch count of 24, and then we will be placing 1 single crochet in each stitch around for a handful of rows. So I will meet you at the end of this row when I have finished placing my 24 stitches. So again, it's single crochet, increase, single crochet, whoops, it's a little tricky where the beads are, single crochet, single crochet, and then increase. Actually, I guess I'll just take you all the way around. It's not too far, this row, is it? So we'll finish this one here, single crochet, increase, and then single crochet, increase. And we will again slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet that we made. And we have finished our face rows. Now we're going to be working his body. Now if your eyes pop to the back at any time, just pop them forwards again. Once you start stuffing your piece, your eyes won't pop backwards anymore. And they really shouldn't pop backwards too much more now that we're finished with the face and now that we're working with his body. So for row 5, we're going to start again the same way with a chain 1, but we will no longer be increasing. Every single row until we start working on his cute little tushy back here will be 1 single crochet in each stitch around, which also means that your stitch count will remain at 24 for the next few rows. So I'm going to go ahead and place 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and we are going to do that for 2 rows. So we're currently working on row 5 right now, and we will be doing 1 single crochet in each around with this yellow yarn for 2 more rows. So this row and row 6, and then we'll be switching to black yarn, which is exciting because I'm going to be showing you a new technique so that you don't have to have tails every single time you change color. Now for a piece like this, where you don't really see the back side because it's going to be inside your bee, it makes it a lot easier than having to reattach your yarn every single time, because you can do what's called carrying your yarn up with you, and then you won't have tails to weave in every single time we change colors. So I'm coming to the end of my 5th row here, and I've placed 1 single crochet in each stitch around, so I still have a stitch count of 24, and I will slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet that I made and chain 1 to begin row 6. Row 6 is going to be worked the exact same way, so we'll insert a single crochet into the top of that first one there, right at the base of where that chain is coming from, and in each stitch around we'll be placing 1 single crochet. Once we get to the end of this row, I'm going to be showing you how to prepare your black yarn and attach it. So I will meet you back at the end of this row in just a second. Alright, so I'm placing my last stitch there and I'm ready to slip stitch, but I'm going to stop because I want to get my black yarn ready for attachment. So I'll grab my black yarn and find the middle of it, hopefully without too much of a fuss this time. There we go. And I'm going to secure it by starting it with a slip knot. We'll close that up just a little bit. Then we'll grab our yellow yarn again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook into the top of that stitch that I would be slip stitching into, but instead of using my yellow yarn, I'm actually going to put it down and attach my black yarn. I'll snug it up just a little bit. I'll pull it through as if I had slip stitched with the black yarn. So we are going to do 2 rows with the black yarn now, still doing just 1 single crochet in each stitch around. And we're going to start it the same way as all the other rows. We are going to chain 1. Now don't worry about this loop here, we're going to be able to tighten it up in a minute, but I just want to start to secure the piece first. And again, we need to place our first single crochet exactly where that chain stitch has come from, which can be a little bit tricky when you've changed colors. So it is this stitch right here, right at the base of where that chain stitch is coming from. We'll place our single crochet. So we've got 1, and we'll just place a couple more before we go back and tighten up that yellow yarn. And we don't want to cut this yellow yarn, because what we're going to do when we switch back into this stripe here, we're not going to reattach our yellow yarn. We're just going to carry it up with us, and I will show you what that looks like. So for now, all we're going to do is we're going to take that tail and we're going to pull this nice and tight so that that strange little loop disappears into that stitch so that we don't see it. Now, if it happens to loosen up a little bit while you're working your row, it's okay. We're going to be able to tighten it up as we go. So we will continue this row with our black yarn, placing 1 single crochet in each stitch around. And we are going to do this for a total of 2 rows. So we will work this row, and then we will work 1 more row with black, and then we're going to switch back to yellow. So I'll just get through this row with you real quick and show you what it looks like as we start our second row. Now nothing is changing about this pattern right now. All I'm doing is working one single crochet in each stitch around. And then we will slip stitch to our first single crochet. The only thing that has changed is the color of the yarn that we're working with. So we'll place that last stitch, and then this looks familiar. We're going to slip stitch into the top of that first stitch, not to be confused with that chain. Just because the color has changed, we're still not putting our stitch into that chain stitch. We want to go right into the top of that first single crochet that we created, and we'll do a slip stitch. We'll then chain one, and we're going to work the exact same thing. One single crochet into each stitch around. And I will meet you at the end of this row where we'll change back to yellow. So each of our stripes on our body of our bee will be 2 rows of whichever color. So 2 rows of yellow, 2 rows of black. Now you will start to see a little bit of a seam happen here as the colors change, but it's going to happen at the bottom of your bee. So there's my seam there. It's not super duper noticeable. There are ways that you can work around this, but when you're working with stripes, it is pretty tricky not to have a perfect seam or edge showing. So that's okay if that happens, because it is going to be at the bottom of our piece. We won't see it too much. So again, I will meet you at the end of this piece, at the end of this row, pardon me, where we'll change to yellow, and I will show you the technique of carrying up your yarn with you. All right, so I'm placing my last single crochet here of this row, and I'm going to change colors to my yellow. So the same way that we did it with the black, except with the yellow, we don't have to do a slip knot first because our yarn is already attached. We are going to insert our hook as though we're going to slip stitch, but instead we're going to put our black yarn down, and we're going to just simply pick up our yellow yarn over and pull it through, just like that. And again, we are going to chain one to start this row, and directly where that chain has come from, into the top of this stitch right here, we're going to place one single crochet. And we are going to continue this row with one single crochet in each stitch around. And I am going to just put a couple of stitches in, and I will tighten up. I'll grab that black tail and tighten up that stitch at the beginning of this row. And what happens when you're working with 2 colors is sometimes they start to cross over each other. So I just play this little game where I switch my yarn like that so that they're not crossed over while I'm working. So each time I change colors, I'll just be switching places with the yarn, swapping the colors out. So I'm going to continue working this row and the next with yellow yarn. So we'll be doing 2 rows, and then 2 rows, and then 2 rows, and then 2 rows of all these colors. So we'll be switching back and forth between yellow and black. And we are going to do this twice in total. So we're working on our first yellow stripe. We'll do 1 more black stripe and then 1 more yellow stripe. And I will meet you at the end once you have those 4 stripes finished, because when we start working this black round here, that's when we're going to start decreasing and shrinking down the bum of our bee. So we've got black stripe, we're working on the yellow right now, and then you'll repeat that process once more, black and then yellow, 2 rows each. And when you're about to attach your black yarn again, stop and wait for me, watch this video, and I'll show you how to decrease your stitch count. So I'm going to keep going, and I will meet you at the end of the 4 stripes that we're creating right now. All right, so I've got my cute little bee here, and I finished those 4 stripes of colors. And now if you are using safety eyes, this would be a great time. This will be almost your last chance to insert your safety eyes right now. Now safety eyes sort of look like they have a screw on the back of them, and then there's a washer that comes with them. So you poke them through where you want, and then you snap that washer on the back, and they aren't going anywhere. So that's why it's important to make sure that you don't forget to attach your safety eyes before you stuff your piece and before you close it up, because you won't have another chance to do that now. So it would be a good time for you to turn it inside out, pop those eyes on, and then pop your piece back through like this, because what we're going to do first before we switch to black yarn is we're actually going to stuff our piece right now. So I'm going to grab my big old bag of stuffing over here. I'm going to grab some of it, and we are going to start stuffing our piece. Now we want to make sure that our yarn is staying out. And when you are stuffing amigurumi, especially for beginners, you really do want to put more in than you think you'll need. If there's room to add more stuffing, add that stuffing. Because there's nothing worse than stuffing your piece and closing it all up and then realizing that after playing with it for a little bit, or if you're making a pillow after using it for a little while, that your pillow or your toy is all floppy and has lost the puffiness to it. So you don't have to stuff it too much right now, because we do still have to work a couple more rows, but that's a good amount of stuffing for now. I'll put that away for a moment, and we will start our decrease rows. So we will attach our black yarn the same way that we have been, with a slip stitch. Now it is going to be a little bit interesting now that you have stuffing to work with, but you just need to keep pushing it down as you go. So we'll insert our hook, we'll grab our black yarn, the same way that you've been doing it for this past few rows, and we'll pull straight through. Now that was a big loop, so I'm going to tighten it up right away. We'll chain one, and in this row, we're going to be doing a pattern of single crochet, decrease. So this is where you're going to learn how to decrease a stitch. So we'll place our first 2 single crochet. 1, split my yarn there, and 2. And now we are going to decrease. So how you decrease with a single crochet is you insert your hook into that stitch that you want, yarn over and drop a loop. And instead of yarning over and pulling through these 2 loops, you're going to go directly into that next stitch, yarn over and drop a loop. That'll leave you 3, so you've got the next 2 stitches attached to your piece here, and then you'll yarn over and you'll pull through all 3 of those. So you've now combined these 2 stitches into 1 stitch. You've decreased your stitch count, and we're going to repeat that all the way around. So we're going to do a pattern of single crochet, and a decrease. So again, how that looks is you'll insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, drop a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, drop a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those. So you've combined these 2 stitches into 1. And we'll continue this all the way around. Single crochet, getting a little tangled here, decrease. So into the 1 stitch, into the next stitch, and then draw them together. So I will finish this row up with you. So I've got a single crochet, and a decrease right here coming up. And we've got 3 more, I believe, of those. Single crochet, and a decrease. And then the last one here is single crochet, and a decrease. All right, and again, I got a little loose there, so I'm going to pull that yellow yarn. We will close this row up with a slip stitch. Oh, grabbed the wrong yarn there. And we have finished our first decrease row. Now we do have to do another decrease row with black before we switch to yellow. So we will chain one. And in this row, we're going to be doing a pattern of single crochet, decrease, single crochet, decrease. So rather than placing 2 single crochets before the decrease, we're just placing one now. So we'll place our first single crochet, and then right away we'll decrease. And then we'll place 1 single crochet, and we'll decrease. One single crochet, and we will decrease. One single crochet, and we'll decrease. So we're doing this all the way around. One single crochet, and we'll decrease. And we have to do that once more I'm at the end of my yarn here, so we'll single crochet, and then we will decrease. Now I am going to slip stitch, and we will be changing colors here. So I am going to drop that black tail there, and I'll pull through my yellow yarn, and then I'll tighten this up. Now we are done with the black yarn, so you can go ahead and snug up that last loop that you made there and stuff that black yarn once you've trimmed it. Now I trimmed mine while I was working the rows of the body because I knew how much yarn it was going to need, but you should still have your yarn attached. So you'll trim your yarn, stuff it all in there, and this will be our final row. We're only going to be doing 1 row of yellow, and then we're going to sew the piece up. So if you notice that you could still stuff some more, now's the time to do it. We'll hold our yellow out of the way and stuff up as much as you can. And again, especially as a beginner, you'll think that you've put enough stuffing in there. I bet you any money you could get some more in there. For reference, with this size of bee, I used about a sandwich bag full of yarn, of stuffing, pardon me, for this bee. And I could still put even some more in there. Let's just grab a little bit more. Trust me, it will fit. All right, so this will be our final row, and then we will sew our piece shut and we'll create the wings. So this row is going to start the same way. We're going to chain 1, but in this row we are going to be decreasing every single stitch. So right now we have a stitch count of 12, and we're going to end up with a stitch count of 6. So we are no longer doing just 1 single crochet. We are decreasing all the way around. So right off the bat, we're going to insert our hook and into the next one. There's our first decrease. Got a knot in my yarn here. I'm just going to work right around it. Decrease. Decrease. Sometimes you end up bringing through a little bit of that stuffing, but that's okay because you can just pick it right out of your piece once it's done and sewn up. So we're going to decrease. And then this time when we slip stitch, you can trim your yarn, give yourself a decent tail, and maybe I don't know, 10 inches. And you can pull that straight out. Give it a good tug, and you end up with what we have is a little opening here. So we'll grab our darning needle, and we're going to sew this last little bit shut. So attach your darning needle to the end here. Now I did not need to leave myself this much of a tail, but that's okay because we can just tuck it in. So I'm going to find each stitch around. There should be 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then from the outside to the inside, I'm going to go into each stitch. Three, 4, 5, and 6. When I've done all 6 of those stitches, I should be able to just pull and it will cinch itself up. And then all I have to do is sort of find wherever I feel like it to weave in my ends. And then after that, I can just tuck it straight into my piece all the way through, bring it out wherever I can, and cut my yarn. So we have now finished our bee body, and all we have left to do is make his adorable little undersized wings. Now I actually love how tiny they are because it just doesn't make sense. He should not be able to fly, but he can. So we will make those next. Let's grab our white yarn and get started. All right. So we're on the final step of our piece, and we're going to make our wings. So with our white yarn, we'll start with a magic ring. So again, that's around all 4, then around the middle fingers twice. Pinch your yarn, insert your hook right to left, drop a loop, and chain 1 to secure. We can then let go of our piece, and we are going to work again 6 single crochet into your magic ring. 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'll pull it closed and pull your tail to shut it. And then we will slip stitch into that first single crochet that we've made. Oh, get in there. And we will chain 2, because instead of working single crochet, we are going to work half double crochet into this round, and we are going to be increasing. So in each stitch around, we are going to be placing 2 half double crochet. So a half double crochet, you yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, drop a loop. You'll have 3 left, and then you'll yarn over and draw through all 3. And we need to do that once more into that same stitch. And then in each stitch around, we're going to be placing 2 half double crochet. And believe it or not, that's one wing. It's just 2 simple rows. So the first row has 6 single crochet, and the second row you'll be placing 2 half double crochet into each stitch for a total stitch count of 12. So I'm going to place my last 2 here. And then I will slip stitch into that first one that I made. I'll grab my scissors, trim my yarn, leave yourself a little bit of a tail because we will be having to sew these onto our piece. Pull your yarn out and snug it through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my darning needle and weave, oh my goodness, weave this tail a little ways in. We are going to use both of these tails for attaching your piece. So just on the back here, I'm just kind of weaving it down to where the other tail is, however you want. You're not really going to see them. And you're going to go ahead and make 2 of these. Now for the sake of time, I have already made my second one, and we will attach them to our bee. Now it's very, very simple to do this. We're just going to grab our darning needle or crochet hook. You can pull these tails through your piece if you prefer, but I like to use the darning needle. I find it a little bit more accurate. So we'll just place our wings sort of where we would like them. And then it's just going to be a very simple, wherever you can kind of get your needle in there, we'll just sew it a couple of times back and forth. All I'm doing is kind of finding spots where I know that I'm not really going to see it. And all I have to do, I can sew it a little bit more than that. I'm not going to just for the sake of this video, but all you have to do after that is tie a knot with that other tail that you had. And then again, with a darning needle or with a crochet hook, sometimes I find it easier with a crochet hook to just pull through, my piece. So I'll grab both of these tails and I will pull them through. And then I can trim my yarn right up close to my piece, poke that back in there and take all the fluff away. And of course I would attach my other tail or my other wing the exact same way. And then the last thing you have to do is just grab a little scrap of black yarn and sew on a cute little mouth. So that is my tutorial for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next week we're going to be doing a very, very neat wall hanging, and it is a potted cactus, which is actually my design. So I will have that pattern available for download on my Etsy shop next week as well. So I hope you'll join me. We will be working in rows again, but I'm going to be showing you how to carry your yarn across with you as well. And you will be learning a surface slip stitch or surface crochet. So I hope to see you next week. Thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend.